My name is Colleen Sullivan from Spokane Valley, Washington, and you're listening to the Yogakane podcast.
Thank you so much, Colleen, for introducing the podcast. Go check her out on Instagram at sunnysully5. It is August 29th, 2019, and welcome to another episode of the Yogakane podcast. I'm Lauren Sanders, your host. So how are you doing? We are about a day or so from the new moon, and in this time of darkness, which is carved out by nature, it's a time for us to go to the dark side of ourselves, to look at that foundation of who we are and clear up any blockages that might be preventing that full mind-body connection as we move into fall. So let's move into this week's episode, where we are traveling to Seattle, Washington, to pick up our guest for this episode, Jess Rush, who then is going to take us over to India. That's right. This episode is a Yogi's Guide to India. So if you've ever wanted to travel to India, if you felt like it's too out of reach, this is the episode for you. Grab your notepad and let's go to India. Please enjoy this episode. P.S. We recorded this podcast live on Instagram Live, and it was so much fun. Thank you to everybody who showed up and were a part of that experience. And so if you hear us saying hello to people, that's what we're doing. We're saying hi to all of our friends that showed up for the live podcast. All right, here we go. Please enjoy.
I'm going to talk about traveling to India, what that's like, and but before we get into all of that, Jess, could you introduce yourself and
Sure.
like tell us your full name, where you're at, a little bit, about your background and why I asked you to be on here?
Yeah. That's a great question. You can tell me that part. So my name's Jess Rush, Jessica, but nobody calls me that except my mom. And I live in Seattle. I've been here about 16 years. Originally from the East Coast, but the West Coast is now home. And I'm a traveler. So I've traveled the world. I've traveled to a lot of different countries and places. And I fell in love with India 6 years ago on my first trip. My first, so far of 4, but the 5th one's coming up in 2 weeks.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'll actually be landing exactly 2 weeks, pretty much from right now.
Wow.
In New Delhi for the 5th time. So,
Okay.
And I've traveled throughout a lot of India. I started going to India with my old job. I worked for the University of Washington and did study abroad, and I took students. 3 times I took groups of students to India, 1 time undergrads, and twice I took graduate students to travel around India to learn about a variety of different things, but a lot of it was focused on women in India and entrepreneurship and leadership. Yeah, and I started to go for myself for the first time a couple years ago. And India has just really become one of my homes. I tell people that the first time I was there, I knew it was someplace special. I could feel this really powerful energy, and it was pretty early on in my yogic journey. But it was an important place of healing for me then. And then I went a second time and it started to feel comfortable. And then by the 3rd time I got off the plane and I said, this is one of my homes. Like, it just feels so right.
What was it that that felt right?
It was just that it's a place that, for me, it's hard to not feel the energy of the place. The ancientness of the culture, the spirituality of the place. It's a really big, not just geographically and population-wise, but it's just a really big energetic place. And I have found that it's a place where I drop in to my practice really easily. energy, and I love the people, and I just feel very much at home there. It's an easy place for me to feel content and welcomed, and just, yeah, to feel that kind of openness. I'm just going to shut this window behind me because my neighbors are taking out their trash. And I live in the city.
So like when you're there, you just kind of feel like you get like back into like your step, like your rhythm, and you can just kind of easily fall into yourself.
Yeah. It, I had a moment when I was there last fall where I was walking across one of the bridges in Rishikesh, and it was in the early morning and the wind was whipping, and I was crossing, the bridge goes across Ganga, or as we know it in the West, the Ganges River. And it's rare that you're the only one on that bridge. And in this moment, there might have been one person and maybe a cow or a monkey, but it was pretty quiet. It's pretty empty. And I just was not overwhelmed, but overcome by this feeling of contentedness and belonging. And it was a feeling that I haven't felt in many places, just kind of spontaneously like that and by myself. And I felt that more than once in India.
What were you doing before then? Like, were you doing daily yoga or meditation, or like how long were you there?
Yeah, so I had been there probably about 4 or 5 weeks, probably at that point. Mostly in the same town, but I traveled a little bit outside of Rishikesh. And I was, daily yoga, so 5 a.m. meditation, then asana practice, and then morning fire ceremony, fire puja, or yajna. And spending a lot of time at a particular ashram, eating there, just really soaking it up, taking music lessons, hanging out with friends, both Indian and Western friends. So yeah, I sort of developed this rhythm of life when I was there last fall that pretty much was like that. And the days went by and then started all over again.
And now you're about to go there in 2 weeks and do it all over again and drop in. Okay, so I don't know where to start with you because you just said a bunch of things, and my mind is like, okay, well, how does she spend 5 weeks there? So she does yoga one place, music somewhere else. What's an ashram? So like, I mean, I kind of know what ashram is, but I also like, I'm sure the ashrams there are like a little different. So maybe we should start with like geographically where you're at. So like you said, so you typically fly into New Delhi?
Oh, there you are.
Oh, there you are. Did you hear me? Oh yeah, of course you did. Everyone who's listening, we're also on Skype too. So we're kind of like double dipping.
Now you're coming in and out a little bit just now.
Okay.
But I heard geographically. So like, is that what you're hearing? Yeah.
So kind of where do you fly into?
So it depends on where you're going. I mean, India is a big country. It's huge. And so it really, where you fly into is really going to depend on where you're going to end up. I have flown in and out of Mumbai and New Delhi. And Mumbai is on the west coast of India, a little bit further south, but sort of central west coast. And then Delhi is more north central.
Okay.
And it's the capital. So those two are two of the sort of bigger hubs for flying other places within India and also arriving and departing internationally. They're not the only two. You can fly into other cities too. Those are the two that I've flown into. And Mumbai was the one I had been to most, and now Delhi has just jumped past it. But and so I've spent most of my time in the northern half of the country. I've been to Bengaluru or Bangalore, which is further south, but I've only spent a few days there, and then Mumbai the state of Rajasthan and a bunch of towns and cities in Rajasthan, which is an amazing place. And then the Taj Mahal in Agra and New Delhi, and Ahmedabad in Gujarat, which is just north of Mumbai. Anyway, yeah, all over. And then Rishikesh is where I've done the most of my yoga. So that's where I've had the most of my yogic experiences, are sort of focused, dedicated.
And are you going back there?
Yeah.
Okay. So in all those places then, does the yoga style vary?
Yeah. Not necessarily just because of geography, more because of the people who are teaching, or the gurus or the teachers. But yeah, like it does here. There are different styles. And so it really depends on the ashram. You might find, more of one style in one place versus another, but it can vary. I think other things vary more. Geography, like food, which is an important part of the whole experience.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so I'd say one of the big things that varies as far as the yoga goes, and it depends too on kind of how we're defining yoga, right? Like we talk about yoga, and so many of us think about asana, and that's all we think about. I mean, when I first started practicing, that was all I knew it as. My experience with yoga, practicing yoga in India, is that it's much more holistic on a everyday level. Like it's a teacher that I know in India calls what we do in the West jumping and pumping, and it's like this workout. It's a physical thing, and a lot of us get into it that way. And if that's our gateway, then that's awesome. And then there's so much more, right? And so I think that's one of the big differences that I first experienced being there, was just how whole yoga is, and in all of its parts.
Okay, so could you go into that a little bit more? Like what do you mean when you say holistic? Like, is it a day, like kind of does the whole community get in on a practice, or can you kind of go into that a little bit more for us?
What I mean by holistic?
Yeah, like in regards to when you're in India.
Yeah, so what I mean by holistic is all of the parts of yoga. Okay. So not just the asana, but the meditation, pranayam.
I'm getting hot. I must be thinking about Indian food.
I know, me too. The different pieces of yoga. So pranayam, meditation, mantra, and then the different ways that there are to practice yoga too, as far as just it's a philosophy, it's a lifestyle in India. It's a way that people live. So it's sort of both of those two things, I guess, that I mean.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Neat. So it's more ingrained in their everyday culture.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, cool.
Yeah. And not for everybody. It's not. Yeah. But I think it's so ancient, and it's so, not everybody practices asana every day. But the way that people that I've met generally live their lives is in a way that's grounded and rooted in this ancient practice of yoga, the big picture, the big whole thing.
Yeah, it's like it's ingrained into their value system.
Yes. Hi, Cammie.
Hi, Cammie.
Yeah, exactly. It's ingrained into their value system, their culture. It is their culture. It's the way that they live for a large part of the people in India.
Okay. So now to pull back from that.
Yeah.
Going to a totally different question.
Sure.
So what is the cost of a ticket to get there?
To fly to India is really just going to depend on where you're coming from, and how many stops you have to make along the way. So where I live in Seattle, sometimes you can get really lucky and go as low as 6 or 7, 800. That's pretty, 800 you can do, 6 or 7 is pretty rare to get really lucky. I usually pay around $1,000 to fly round trip, and you can't get there directly from Seattle anyway. I mean, from other places you can, but I usually fly through either Dubai on Emirates. This time I'm flying through Singapore, so that'll be a first. This
cool.
trip. Yeah, but you can fly through London or Paris. Those are two of the other kind of main stops. Yeah.
And then
so it can get up to even higher price, so it's great to watch. Yeah.
So kind of keep your eye out for the prices.
Yeah.
All right.
Totally.
That's good to know. And so once you're there, how about before we buy the ticket? Let's kind of think about that.
Yeah.
So what do you suggest? Can you just go there without any kind of schedule or agenda, or do you suggest having some sort of agenda in mind?
The first time, I definitely recommend having at least a few days of something planned at the beginning. Before you even get on a plane, though, you need to have a visa. So you can't go to India without a visa. Nobody in the world can. For something like 160 countries or citizens of 160 countries, you can do something called an e-visa, a tourist visa online. That's really pretty easy once you figure out their system. But it's pretty simple. It comes electronically, it gets emailed to you, and then you print out a copy and you travel with it. And it's and that's one way you can do it. You can also get a long-term visa you can get a 5 or 10-year visa. That's what I have now, 10-year visa. Yeah. And that's got to happen though. So you've got to get that taken care of before you go. Pretty much, for everybody.
All right.
No matter what your country of origin is. And then the first time you get off a plane in Mumbai or Delhi or anywhere, it's like, for me, my first time was such a sensory overload. And if I hadn't had somebody picking me up at the airport, I don't know. And I even at that point was pretty well traveled. It was intense. It was a lot. Like sounds and noise and language and, and smells and all of my senses were just like firing.
Especially if you're a yogi. If you're a yogi, your senses are already like, like an insect.
And just the sheer number of people that are around, and then cows and monkeys and all of the animals and all of the creatures and beings and everybody.
Wow.
And it's a new place and you're jet lagged and you've just come off a 23-hour travel day. And so to have something set up for yourself, at least for the first few days, highly, highly, highly recommend. When I go to India, because it's so generally and relatively so affordable, I have a friend who works in travel. He does travel logistics and helps people book hotels and cars and drivers and all this stuff. So I hire a driver in a car to pick me up and take me to my hotel or wherever I'm going. Just so that I don't have to think about it at that moment.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
And then once you're there, like once you're at your destination, do you usually like walk or bike or get a car? Like, what do you like to do?
Yeah, I don't drive.
Okay.
Never. I can't imagine driving. It's a total experience and I love it as a passenger now. I was terrified the first couple of times I was there as a passenger, and I get motion sickness too. So it's a little bit, that's part of the experience. And now it's sort of like, it's a fun experience for me now because I'm more comfortable and I have more trust in the people that they're going to know how to do it. Traffic and driving in India is one of those things. It's like the divine is at play here because somehow this all works. And like with no lines and it's fabulous. And I love to sort of observe that. I, however, do not want to be behind the wheel of a car there.
Okay.
I've traveled around a lot of different ways. So I've been on tour buses, I've been in private cars, trains. I love taking the train in India. It's another really fantastic opportunity to meet people. It's a very social experience, I found, the train. And then I've flown. And then when I'm in particulars, depends on the city or the town that I'm in, how I get around. When I'm in Rishikesh, I walk. I walk most places, yeah, or I take auto rickshaws, tuk-tuks, they're sometimes called. And in Delhi, sometimes I'll take the metro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow,
Or
this
taxis.
is
Yeah.
really good information. You should like write like a yogi's guide to India or something.
It's so great. I could just talk about it for hours.
I love it. Okay, so once you're there, you suggest having a schedule for like your first, well, at least have someone pick you up from the airport.
And know where you're staying. Like,
And know where you're staying.
Okay. The first few days figured out. Yeah, I mean, it is a place that you can go and kind of figure it out. I've talked with lots of people who have done that. Not typically my style. I like to have at least some kind of framework.
Okay.
And then within that, have room for flexibility and change and whatever things come up.
Now on this trip, what were you going to say?
No, go ahead.
So on this trip, you aren't staying at a hotel. You mentioned to me that you're actually getting an apartment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you're looking for roommates. So do you have like people that you have in mind, or are you expecting to meet some people when you're there and ask them to be your roommate?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this trip is a combination of different things. So I'll actually be in an intensive 10-day training for the first part of it. And then I'll be moving into my apartment where I'll be living for the rest of the 4 months. And yeah, I have some friends and people I know who will be coming in and out who will stay with me while they're there. So that'll be great. And then, yeah, it's so easy to meet. In Rishikesh, there are travelers from all over the world and India as well coming through. And so I found when I was there last time, like people were always looking to switch where they're living or find a new place, or they decided to stay longer. So that now they need another place or something like that. So yeah, it's a really friendly kind of it's one of those places where you can go to a cafe, and if you want to kind of have a quiet time and a cup of chai and write in your journal and not talk to anybody, you can do that. Or you can meet 10 new friends from 10 different countries and have really interesting conversations with them. So yeah, I think I'll just see what happens. That's one of my things where I have sort of a framework. I have a place to live, but I don't yet know who will share it with me.
How did you find the apartment?
Through a friend.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I have a friend who he Airbnbs it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so I was able to find that through him.
So to me, it kind of sounds like a giant yoga retreat. Like everyone that's there is kind of like in a yoga retreat mind. So they're really open, receptive, kind of non-judgmental, accepting people.
Yeah, I think it definitely attracts sort of a seeker.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. So Rishikesh, this place that we're talking about right now, it's a holy site. It's a really spiritual and holy place for Hindus, a vast majority of Indians. And so a lot of the tourism and a lot of the people who are in Rishikesh who don't live there are also Indian. So there are people coming from all over India to visit Rishikesh. And Ma Ganga, the river. So Rishikesh is the first really significant major town that Ganga flows through as she comes out of the Himalayas. So she comes out of the mountains and is glacier, comes out of the glacier and comes down in the mountains and then passes through Rishikesh. And so it's just an absolutely beautiful place and very, very spiritual, divine, holy place. So it attracts a lot of people for that. And then, yes, many seekers, yogis from all over the world come. And yeah, that's been my experience anyway, is that the people who are there, there's something similar kind of driving us all and bringing us all there.
Yeah. And is there a certain kind of dress code when you're in Rishikesh?
So all over India, the culture there is pretty conservative as far as dress goes. It's less so with young people. So it's much more Western. You can walk on a university campus and see women in jeans and tank tops, skirts, that kind of thing. But it's still a conservative place. And so when I travel in India, I dress generally like an Indian would, out of respect for the culture. And that's really the big thing, is out of respect. So when I took students, we required it. So we had a dress code for our trip. There's not a dress code in public, right? But there's a way that you can be in a place that's respectful of the host. And so like shoulders covered.
What does it look like, the dress, like how you dress when you're there?
Yeah, so I wear a lot of leggings and what are called kurtas, like tunics, right?
Okay.
And then all the cover from shoulders and down all the way to at least the knees. So, and then loose fitting things. So like leggings aren't loose, but having a kurta that covers the bum and that region. So it's that kind of thing. And then depending on where you go, like if you're staying at an ashram or if you're doing a yoga program, meditation program, that kind of thing, some places will have dress codes in that situation. They might ask you to wear white or other sattvic colors. And then again, staying kind of in line with that cultural conservatism of dress is important.
Yeah.
The ashram that I spend a lot of time in, wearing white is a big part of how they dress there.
Why do they wear white?
Well, it's a sattvic color. It's for me, I wear white a lot when I teach yoga too, because I find it's a reflective color and it's reflects back the light onto the people that I'm practicing with or studying with or guiding.
Love that.
And I think that's part of it there. And then just again, kind of being part of that sattvic yogic thing.
Okay. Wow. So this ashram, are you going back to the same one that you have been to in the past?
I am. I won't be living there because I'll be in my apartment. My apartment's right around the corner.
That's nice.
So I get to still really close for morning practice and meals. And my friends, I have friends who work there and who will be there in general. So for me, it's a place that I found that I feel really, again, comfortable, content, and also challenged in lots of different ways. But I love the food there, and I really like the teacher and the style, the way that he teaches, and the energy that he kind of anchors the place with. So
have you tried out other ashrams besides this one?
I haven't tried a whole lot of other ones because I was recommended to go to this one, and then I loved it.
Okay.
So
what's this place called?
It's called Anand Prakash.
All right. And what's it like there? Like, I've never been to an ashram, so like what is it? Like, what can you expect when you're in, like, maybe at how do you say it again?
Anand Prakash.
Anand Prakash.
Anand, like Ananda, or Anand, joy.
Mm-hmm.
Anand Prakash, Prakash.
What does that mean, Prakash?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't remember.
Google it.
Totally gone from my head. I know I have my booklet from there right over there too. I can't remember what Prakash means. And as soon as I said the name, I was like, she's going to ask me what that means.
I know. You knew I would.
So what's it like there?
Pesky little podcaster.
Yeah, right? Getting me. So what is it like there? I mean, it's there are lots of ways I could answer that question.
Well,
the food.
Maybe start like visually, because like when I think of an ashram, I think of like a building with rooms, and there's like one main center. But like I can't picture the details, like the color. Is there like plants in there? Is it open? Is it closed? Like I can't put the details into place, if that makes sense.
It does. And generally sort of your big picture sort of image in your head is not far off. This particular ashram has a nice sort of garden patio, like outside space before you walk in, and there's a little library and a sitting room, and then there's another open space. Part of it's, well, they're adding on to it, so I don't entirely know that this is still going to be true when I get there, but it's mostly open to the sky on the first floor, sort of like a courtyard area, and that's where the area is where we have fire ceremony in the mornings is there, and kirtan happens there. It's a gathering space. The kitchen and dining area where we eat is down underneath that, so sort of in a basement level, sort of. And when that's set up so that everybody sits on the floor in long rows with trays in front of them that we put our plates and our bowls on, and so we sit on the floor and eat together in long rows. At meals, sometimes it's silent and sometimes it's boisterous and chatty, and it just depends on the meal and the day of the week. So yeah, eating in silence is a really, really special practice that it's really cool to kind of pepper in throughout the week. So every breakfast at this ashram, every breakfast is silent, and then dinner is silent twice a week, which is really sweet. The food tastes different. You're actually paying attention to it, in my experience. So that's kind of how that looks. And then there are rooms, like residential rooms for where people stay on that floor, and then upstairs, and they're adding more rooms. And then the yoga hall is up all the way upstairs. There's also a small one in the basement. But it's yellow. So you're like, what is it?
Yeah, like what does it look like?
Yeah, sort of like a yellowish, orangish, kind of yellowish building. And it's so joyful. In the open gathering space that I talked about, kind of when you first walk in, where fire puja and or it's also called yetya, and kirtan happens, there's a big mural of Shiva on one wall.
Oh, wow.
That is gorgeous. Yeah, so beautiful. And so there are murti and little altars here and there, and plants.
And then anyone go there, like, or do you have to kind of have be signed up in advance, or can you just drop into a yoga class?
Yeah, you can totally drop in, and that's true of most places from what I've experienced. Most places most ashrams or yoga schools, or even some of the hotels have at least one public yoga class a day where you can drop in, pay however much, a few hundred rupees and a few dollars, and take a yoga class. So a lot is public. At Anand Prakash, for example, morning meditation, that 5 a.m. meditation, the morning practice, and then the fire puja are all open to everybody. And every day, generally, there's also an afternoon yoga practice that's not generally taught by the main teacher, Vishwaji, or Yogrishi Vishvaketu. Vishwaji is easier. So he teaches in the morning when he's there, and then somebody else usually teaches an afternoon class that's also open to the public. Kirtan is open to the public.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of public access, and that's sort of part of how it happens in India. It's there to be shared and to be, yeah. So
yeah,
you can
you're
pretty
kind of
much
talking about that before when we were talking about planning for the podcast. You mentioned that it's like a very inclusive community and very much open door kind of experience.
Yeah, that's been my experience. That's been my experience. So, I mean, so many examples of where that and how that looks, where that's happened and how that's looked. One of my favorite things is sort of this image of seeing photos framed in people's walls, and you might see Ganesha next to Jesus. Okay, and it's just, and then so I was on a train one time going from, when I was leaving actually in March of 2018, I was going back from Rishikesh back to Delhi on the train, and I had been gifted by a friend a little booklet with the Hanuman Chalisa in it. The Hanuman Chalisa is a 40-verse prayer. And so I pulled that out because I was starting to study it, to learn it. And the man sitting next to me on the train noticed it, and then I noticed his phone screensaver was a picture of Hanuman. And he said, you're learning, are you reading the Chalisa? Are you learning it? And I was sort of expecting to have this 6-hour train ride of just me and journaling and reading the Chalisa, and it was a 6-hour conversation with this man who was just like, that's amazing that you're studying that and that you're interested in it and that you're going to take it back to your home and share it. And that's really been my experience all over India. It's like, welcome. Sometimes, why are you here? I've been asked that question. Or, like, why is this important to you? What is it about our culture and our way of life or our practice that attracts you or is important to you? And, thank you for doing it and for sharing it, and for doing it in a way that respects its traditions, for being here, for learning it here, for and having this conversation with me, whatever. But yeah, I have found it so welcoming and warm, and I've been welcomed into people's homes and been shared meals with, and just really pretty much without exception. That's been my experience, with young people, with old people, with everybody in between, and all over in all of the places I've been around the country.
Why do you go there then? Like when they ask you that question, like, why are you here? Like, why do you go to India?
Well, the first reason was for work. So the first time, right, it was on my radar. I had started practicing yoga. I'd sort of found my gateway, but I hadn't really dived too deep yet. And then I was in India for the first time, and I had some really healing, pretty intense experiences while I was there that cracked me wide open, like wide open. Ended up sending me back to therapy, sort of like, oh, thought I was done with that. Nope, not done with any of that. But it totally cracked my heart wide open.
That's good.
Yeah, and so that I tell people that I go because it's the spiritual practice of yoga in its whole sense, from asana to mantra, bhakti yoga, all of the different kinds of yoga that I practice. It has meant so much to me, and it has helped me find my way and my path, and it's been so critical to my healing journey that it's important for me to continue to study and practice and learn in the place where it comes from and from the people of India. Like I have a music teacher in Rishikesh. I have a music teacher in Seattle too, and she's amazing. And it's really important for me to also learn from my teacher in India. And so, yeah, that's pretty much, I mean, that's not little, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Do you keep in touch with your teachers from India when you're away?
Yeah, I do. Hi, Melissa.
Hey.
We were just talking about you. I do. Yeah. So like with my teachers and my friends, some of whom are like family there. Yeah, I do. I am on WhatsApp and I get messages from people all the time. One of my dear friends sends me a message for every American holiday. Merry Christmas. Happy Halloween. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I mean, all
Happy
of them.
Labor Day.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, but I haven't gotten Labor Day. And I just so connected to what's happening over here. But yeah, it's amazing to be able to stay in touch, and social media and WhatsApp and all those things allow that.
So your yoga teacher then at the ashram, is it a female or a male?
No, he.
Okay, so is he easy to get in touch with when he's is he pretty easy to get? They're getting an echo.
Huh.
Oh, good to know. Thanks. That's my little hubby. He's just looking out for us.
Oh, sweet.
I know. So I think maybe he might be getting an echo because of the Skype sound. This is good to know. So we're learning a lot. Double headphone on the phone, headphone on Skype.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna turn down Skype a little bit more.
Or we figure out how to how to just do it in one place and then share it other places.
Yeah. I know. I really wanted to be careful so that we didn't lose it. I don't want to lose it, Jess.
I know, and now I feel like anyway, like that.
What do you feel like?
Okay, so it's not connected to my earbuds anymore. That could be why. So, well, your question, so I haven't done formal study with that teacher at the ashram. I've been every day for about a month, plus 5-6 weeks. But I haven't done formal study yet with him. I'm going to in March. I'm going back for a training there in classical Kundalini, teacher training in classical Kundalini yoga. And but yeah, I mean, I know, like he has social media too. And so I follow him and his social media accounts. And
I mean, it really is a helpful tool. And I found more connection, authentic connection in Instagram and social and Facebook than the negative side of it. And I don't know if it's because intentionally that's where I'm at, but when I see someone doing an awesome thing, I just kind of see more like, I just kind of am like happy for them and not. So I
Yeah.
just think though it's because I'm in a different headspace than maybe I was a few years ago when it came to all of the Instagram stuff about, being
Mhm.
like jealous or envious or having people show like a false life. And I mean, I know that does happen, but
Totally.
in a way, how do I know that's happening?
Yeah.
It's like kind of creating a story. So, all
Yeah.
right, well, okay, so to kind of pull back into this, so like how much does it cost to go to an ashram every day?
Again, I told you I was going to say it depends a lot. It
Yeah.
depends.
Okay.
So it depends on if you're living there, if you're just going to drop into a yoga class, if you're going to drop in for meals, which is possible at some. Um, and so the really sort of the best resource is their websites or
Okay.
reaching out to them. Sometimes the websites are not the best resources because they're not always maintained, but um, reaching out to people like the one like Anand Prakash or Parmath Nikitan, which is another really big one in Rishikesh, that bring in a lot of people regularly, have up-to-date websites and people you can reach out to via the website and email questions to and find out that kind of stuff really easily. That said, relative to what you would pay here for the same kind of thing, the cost is low. It's very affordable for somebody from the US or Canada, to go to India and live. And so, that's definitely something to think about. That could open a whole can of worms. I'm not going to go there
Okay.
unless you want me to. But
Well, what's the worms? What is it?
well,
What's the
it's
can?
just like traveling in a developing country and from the West and all that kind of stuff. For me, it's I somebody
She's my
else waving.
friend, Chelsea.
Oh, nice. Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's important to go and to learn there and to support the teachers who are teaching there and teaching well and teaching with sort of a sound purpose and motivation. There is spirituality for sale in places like Rishikesh. I mean, it's definitely my experience with Indians and Indian culture is that they're some of the most entrepreneurial and resourceful people I've met anywhere in the world, and it's amazing.
So how can you know that like what you're stepping into from a like with an ashram or with like a yoga experience, how do you know that it's authentic?
It's a great, great, great question. Word of mouth,
Okay.
reviews online. So, for example, if you're a yoga teacher or anybody actually can go on the Yoga Alliance website. That's just one example. A lot of these places are also on TripAdvisor and Google reviews. So lots of different places where you can find reviews. And so I highly recommend doing your research.
Okay. So
I've
that's
met
why
a
it's
lot of
kind of
people.
nice to like research and do kind of have a game plan so you don't just kind of slip into like maybe not the most like authentic or intentional experience there.
Yeah. The other thing you can do too is if you have unlimited time, which most of us don't, but say you did, just for fun, and I know that's one of your questions. If you have unlimited time, you could kind of have your plan to get to, say, Rishikesh, and then try a few places out, like go visit a few places, drop in on their public classes, and kind of see what vibes with you.
Okay.
You might not always the calendar might not sync up for you, or you could you could do that research in advance and kind of see what the possibilities are. For those of us who generally don't have unlimited time to go spend 6 months or a year in a place and figuring it kind of out as you go in that way, I mean, the interwebs, they're going to be a really great source of information. And then talking to people who have gone. I found out about Anand Prakash because 2 of my dear friends and teachers had been there and they recommended it to me. And now, before I've been a bunch of times. I spent a lot of time there last year, but not in formal study. And when I was there last year, I knew that formal study with Vishvaji was something that I was going to do because I really had spent time and felt like I understood kind of the philosophy and the approach that he has and that the ashram has.
And you're doing that in the springtime, in March. Okay. So formal study, do you mean like yoga training? Like what we would call a yoga training?
Say that again. Say the first part again.
So what we would call in the West yoga training, is that what you would call formal training over in India?
Yeah. So like, yeah, I haven't done a yoga teacher training or any like that kind of set training.
Bigger picture question, which I don't know if we'll know, but the training that you get there, like what you'll get in the springtime, is that Yoga Alliance?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. So you'll get a Yoga Alliance like credit and be under their umbrella.
Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
Sweet. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so before we started chatting, I went on Yoga Alliance just because I was curious, and I just typed in India, look for school in India, and I think it was 462 results that came back. So, and there, I mean, no shortage.
I wonder why Yoga Alliance is going through so much changes. They gotta hold all the information for the yoga studios.
Yeah. So 462 registered Yoga Alliance schools in India, all over the country. So you could be at one on the beach, you could be up in the mountains, you could be in Mumbai, the city, anyway, all over the place.
I actually think that there would be more than just 462 in India.
Yes and no. I mean, I haven't compared it to other.
Yeah.
But these are the ones that Yoga Alliance has, whatever their previous, and they're changing.
No, I'm just surprised because there's so many, India's such a big country.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, so, okay, that's so good to know. So, kind of going into that time question, time spent there. So you are about to go on a 4-month trip there.
Yeah.
I know this is going to be different for everybody, but how did you get to be in a position where you can do this in your life?
Yeah. That's all of these are just great questions. So I have some savings. I worked, most recently in a job for 14 years. So I've been working in an office until last October. It's almost a year of my leaving anniversary. Yay.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah, and so I have some savings. I also am able to rent out my house through Airbnb and other ways. But so it really is so different for everybody. If you don't have a mortgage and you can get out of your lease or leave your apartment and you don't have expenses back here and you have some savings, those savings can go pretty far in India and in other places as well. They're not going to go very far in London, but they can get you pretty far in a lot of the world. And so I think for a lot of people, it was for me at first. The bigger sort of hang up or barrier is maybe less financial and more kind of perceived barriers than actual barriers, because it's doable. If you can get the plane ticket, that's going to be your biggest expense, is the plane ticket. It might be a yoga teacher training is also your, your first or your second biggest expense next to the plane ticket. But if you want to go and travel and live, you can do it in a way that is not so exponentially expensive. It's doable. Getting the time off from work, allowing yourself to ask for that, to take that for yourself, that for me, that allowing, and that trusting that everything else will figure itself out somehow. I still don't know how entirely. My house is not going to be rented this time, and so my savings will take a hit, and that's okay, because it's so important for me to go for all of the other reasons.
It's kind of like, I heard that a great saying, like, a closed mouth never gets fed. So if you never, if you never ask your employer if you can take time off, or if you never start that conversation, then you'll never even know if that's like an option. And then you'll just kind of live with that kind of story in your head, like, nope, they won't let me do it. So even just starting that conversation, because most companies really want their employees to be happy, and they want to work with you, and they can adjust. So that's really good to know. But it is that storyline in our head that we convince ourselves, and then you kind of live in like a little bit of a fantasy. So it is really nice when we start to work on that voice and asking. And then that's where you kind of start to like brainstorm, come up with solutions, get a little flexible. So cool.
Totally.
So once you're,
I was going to say the biggest thing for me when I left my job last year was realizing that, and it goes for this kind of long-term travel too, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? I come back and I find a job, or I have to come back early, or, like something.
Right.
It's, the world's not over if I go out and I try to do my own thing and start my own business, and it doesn't work like I first expected it to, or I need to do something in the meantime to supplement my income or whatever. But there was this fear that was like, niggling away at me. And when I just decided, like, oh, okay, that's the worst thing. That's not so bad. I can do that. I can manage that. So, that story, like you're saying, that fantasy story kind of thing.
Our live
plays
video
in our
ended.
heads. Oh, shoot.
Hang on. Let me just share it. And then
I guess it's been an
that
hour.
was a really good note to end it on. You are like super inspirational and like powerful. I love that. Like what you're saying. Okay, we're back on. I'm gonna just call you again. This is working out really well. I mean, I know the audio is like a little funny, but it's like a first time thing. So I think we're gonna be. I know the audio on our Skype is good.
Yes.
Yeah,
good.
That's like really clean. That.
Okay, I'm coming back.
Cool.
It keeps telling me I have to request it.
Yeah. Well, I won't just let anyone on here. gotta ask.
Okay.
Switch your screen. So.
Yep, I did.
Here we are back again, take two. So kind of going though into like what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
I think that's like, so you're talking about like kind of letting go of that attachment to sort of like a fear with letting go of work or asking if you can get work off. And, I think that's like, it kind of can relate a lot, I think, to a lot of elements of our life.
Yeah.
Because when we sort of like are so attached to how something is, or in our head how we think it's going to be, it sort of does like skew you. It doesn't skew you, but it does kind of, it can fracture where you go next, you know, because you kind of think like, oh my gosh, for this, like, if, oh my gosh, my boss isn't going to give me time off, then you'll never do it. And then you're going to live like always wanting to do it. And then you'll do one banger trip to India, you know, like all out, you know, nonstop. So, but like these incremental moves, like it might just be 2 weeks at first. And then like in a few years from then you can do a little longer. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
It doesn't. And if that one all out banger trip is it, do it.
Yeah, you know? Exactly. Yeah. Like
go
that's
all out.
It's kind of just like in life though, in general, like, you know, the all or nothing mentality, like, you know, we can still serve and feed ourselves, but we don't have to starve ourselves. We don't have to gorge, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, I don't have kids. I decided to leave my job, you know, so like there are definitely parts of the way that my life is right now that make it easier to do a little bit here and a little bit there, or 4 months and then go back and march for a few weeks or whatever. You know, that's just part of the way my life is right now. And it's how my path has been, and some of by choice and mostly by spirit. And, you know, and I have friends who say that, you know, they live vicariously through my travels. They're married or not married and whatever, have 1, 2, 3 kids, and life just looks different. And, you know, so for them, it might be not until they're 60 and it's one big all out experience, or it starts then as opposed to, now or whatever.
And their trip to India might be talking to you and like learning from you and learning from people who've been there, you know, and that's like why we do kind of need people like you to like refuel us and like bring us back to that lineage of yoga, you know?
Yeah. And that's part of why I do it, because I bring it back, and I hope I try. In my classes, in teaching yoga and coaching, life coaching and Reiki, you know, bringing back the tradition and the culture, and respecting and honoring that in the way that I share these practices. That's a really important part of how I see what I do, because not everybody gets to go. So yeah, sharing it is part of my path, for sure.
All right. So quick question. When you're there, like in India, can you easily, like back on that whole, you know, if you let go of your job here, or you need to make money while you're there, are there ways to get a job? Are there ways to do like work exchange kind of stuff?
You know, I haven't really explored that so much. It's something I'm thinking about exploring actually on this trip. Just because financial things here haven't worked out the way I had hoped for. So yeah, it's something that I will be. So stay tuned, part 2.
Okay, cool.
When I come back. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe, and maybe in places like Rishikesh that are so driven by tourism, or at particular yoga schools or ashrams, maybe they have some kind of trade opportunity. But it's not something that I've explored yet.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll follow up with you on that when you get back, and we can kind of see what you've learned.
Totally.
Okay, so like just kind of like a few more questions that are kind of a little bit more, you know, different. So not different, but they're more just like kind of fire, open fire questions.
Okay, hit me.
Okay, so train ticket, how do you get that? Can you just go to the train? Is there like a schedule? Is it on your phone? Like, what's the deal?
So I've done it a couple of different ways. I've had my friends get them for me. My Indian friends get them for me. Sometimes that's the easiest way to do it. I've also bought them for myself online on the India Rail website.
And you buy them before, or can you buy them like when you're there?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I think there's a certain time frame where India Rail tickets are available. They're not just like you couldn't buy one for 3 years from now or even a year from now. It's within a certain time frame. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you have to wait if you're going for many months at a time. Yeah, and there are lots of different avenues. I've been in several different train stations in India and on different trains, and it is one of my favorite ways to travel in India and otherwise, but particularly in India.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And then you already said a lot, like English is pretty common. So
English is pretty common, but it's not spoken by everybody. It's definitely spoken enough in areas that most people will travel to be fine, to be able to get around and survive. But I don't remember the total number. There are so many languages, official languages and then unofficial languages in India. Like each state has its own language. Not everybody speaks Hindi. Wow. Yeah. So, like I've spent a lot of time in Gujarat, which is another one of the states just on the sort of western side. And in Gujarat, people speak Gujarati. They don't speak Hindi for the most part. Some people do if they've maybe been educated in certain schools or gone to university. They might speak Hindi and English, or they might speak English but not Hindi. So English is really your best bet as a Westerner traveling over there, as opposed to trying to learn something else. I mean, learning a few words is always something I recommend for people who are traveling to a new country. Hello, thank you, in particular, those two. But yeah, English is widely enough spoken.
Do you use any kind of translator apps on your phone?
I don't. I'm starting to learn Hindi. I'm trying.
I'm not surprised.
Thank you, Duolingo. It's hard. But I love languages. It's just one of my things. So cool. I'm working on it. I don't use a translator app because enough people speak enough English, but there's so many different ways of communication outside of language. And that's even sometimes a little bit more interesting in India. There's this, and in other places, like what do the gestures mean? How do people communicate non-verbally? And kind of finding yourself in that flow of nonverbal communication is so fun. So great.
Like, I have a sister with a disability, and she isn't, I mean, she would be kind of categorized as nonverbal because, she doesn't speak like us. She doesn't have full, Ellen, how is your day? And then it's like, good. And that's like it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, stop bothering me. So with her, it's a lot of nonverbal. So I've kind of picked up on that kind of communication. And then when my husband and I were in Costa Rica, we ended up having a full-on conversation with a guy, all through broken Costa Rican, and then also, I mean, it is Mexican, it is Spanish, but it is more there is a Costa Rican dialect. Right. And then also through hand gestures. We even got paper out, or drawing pictures. So it's we talked about Nicaragua and what it's like there, and it just kind of actually uses your imagination more. I know, it's so cool.
It's
okay,
so cool.
Should probably bring cash, right? You suggest having.
I actually pretty exclusively, when I travel, don't leave. I fly to where I'm going and I find an ATM at the airport, and I don't leave the airport till I hit an ATM, because generally you get the best rates directly through an ATM or through a bank that way, rather than exchanging money.
Okay. Cool. All right.
Yeah,
So
some
do it
people,
there.
yeah, so do it there. Some people like to have a little bit of local currency before they get on the plane. I don't. I actually have some because now it's left over, but I usually don't worry so much about that because every airport has ATMs now in them, at least in the major cities.
Okay.
So my first stop is usually an ATM. Some people will take US dollars in India, but you're not always going to get the best rate for that.
Right.
If you're going to bring US dollars either to spend in some way or as kind of a backup or to exchange, crisp new bills are really important. So like they won't take ripped bills. Nobody will take those.
Even their own currency?
Particularly US dollars. Their own currency probably too. I haven't had that experience, but like if you're going to bring US dollars, like 20s, 10s, and nice pretty ones.
Clean ones. Put them in your book. Keep them. Okay.
Yeah. Just
So,
not ripped.
how is like the safety there? Like, how do you feel going there, like on your own?
Yeah.
What's that like?
I think it's like being in a lot of big crowded places and lots of places in the world. I've been there at times that are a little bit politically tricky because there was a big court case and a verdict that was coming down about, I don't know if you remember this. This was like 6 years ago, first time I was there. A couple years or a year before that, there had been this gang rape and murder in Delhi on a bus, and so the verdict was coming down against the men who perpetrated that. I was there during that time, and I was in Delhi when it came, and the verdict came. So I've been there during elections and all different things. I personally feel if I am paying attention, as if I were in New York City or anywhere, Sao Paulo, Rio, all these other places in the world, Paris, London, whatever. Common sense, being aware of your surroundings, that kind of thing just goes a long way. I also think that respecting the conservative culture and dressing in a way that demonstrates that goes a long way in me feeling maybe more comfortable than I would if I walked around in a mini skirt, which I don't generally anyway, but like shorts and a tank top, or like skin tight jeans and a tank top. I don't think I would feel as comfortable because I'm already light curly hair, really pale skin. I stand out. And so I get plenty of attention already. So I don't need to attract more attention by dressing in a way that is
kind of like targeting. Almost.
Targeting. Yeah. So that's part of why I dress the way I do. Also, it usually works because the climate and the way people dress for the climate also is really smart way to go, to follow suit.
It's like humid there and
it's hot and humid most of the time. Yeah, so I think, I have felt safe. Is there potential there for things to happen? Totally. Could I be walking down the street in my neighborhood in Seattle and have something happen to me of a violent nature? Totally. So it's really just about common sense and being aware of your surroundings and traveling smart. I
feel that when we lived in New York City, that was kind of like my thing too, is like I was just a lot more aware and like I didn't put myself in vulnerable positions, meaning like drinking situations. Like I just didn't, if I was walking alone, I stuck to like the main roads. and like kind of knew where I was going. Even if I didn't, I just kind of acted like I knew where I was going. And just kind of, you have to kind of be a little bit like kind of have to be a little bit more direct. But I think that's kind of a part of that sense of gaining that sense of independence when you are traveling, is like you kind of do walk with that sense. So cool.
Yeah. And it's always true. Like if it's something that, if that feels like for somebody sort of like the big barrier,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there are lots of ways to go and be taken care of. You know, so you can travel super independently and be on your own and doing your own thing. And I've traveled solo a little bit in India, and that's been great. You can also go with a teacher from here. Lots of teachers lead retreats in India, and you can experience India that way, where you're going to be picked up at the airport and fed and driven around and cared for, and, you know, totally different experiences. Neither one is better or worse. And that might be the way that you start.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that other avenue to get there. I think that that's such a smart way to think about it too. Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to go and jump head first in on your own. If it's something where it's all, you know, all these different things that can come up for people and be part of our story, all totally valid. You know, for some people, that's just, that leap's not going to happen, to be doing it independently, or, you know, with maybe one friend or something like that. But yeah, going with a group from here on retreat, for example, is a great way.
Yeah, it is.
So to taste it.
What is little taste? Little
taste.
Little amuse-bouche.
Exactly.
So what are you, what's the bathroom situation like there?
Depends on where you are.
Okay.
Lots of places have Western style toilets.
Okay.
Some of them have seats, some of them don't. The Indian toilets, so in some bathrooms you'll see like Western toilet and Indian toilet sometimes labeled with a word or with an image. The squat hole in the ground with ceramic place to put your feet is still very much how people go to the bathroom. I actually, when I go to the bathroom, if I have the option, I'm going in the squat one, because generally it's a lot cleaner. Because you're not, you know, having to sit on something, or I don't know. I have a thing about sitting on public toilet seats that I'm working on getting over. But,
no, I do too. I squat even when I use it. Whenever I use public too.
So when you are there and you have a squat toilet, which is the hole in the ground, you get into a malasana, yogi squat.
Yogi squat.
And it's so much of anatomically, it's better for our bodies. You're not having to hold yourself up. You can let go and release it all. And I love potty talk. So that's how it is. And then some places will be like if you're in a more rural place where there are few and far facilities between, or like if you're out trekking, or I don't know what, you might not have a Western toilet option. You might not have even a ceramic surround to put your feet on. It might be much more like you were out in the woods camping and trying to pee.
Is there toilet paper usually?
No, not always, and not often. Again, kind of depends on where you are. I generally carry some, but then you can't flush it, so you throw your toilet paper away, because the systems aren't designed to process toilet paper. So you put your toilet paper, if you use it, in a bin. I take some toilet paper with me sometimes, but I'm gonna give a little shout out to a friend of mine who makes these she calls them pee cloths. Her company is called Kula Cloth, and she designed them for mountaineers and hikers, for women to wipe the pee. But I use it when I travel. I use it in India, and then you use it and then you wash it and then you use it again, and it's awesome. Some people use a handkerchief.
Okay,
and then
cool.
yeah, for
Kula.
Kula, Kula, Kula cloth. She's got them in really fun designs and stuff. So Anastasia, that's her.
Hi, Anastasia.
Yeah.
Oh, that is really good to know. All right, what about on this like hygiene kick? Are there any kind of shots that you need to get every time you go there?
So I recommend checking out what the CDC has to say and talking to your doctor and making a decision on that with your doctor for yourself. Yes,
so
there are
recommended. Go to your doctor before to like make sure you're up to date. Okay.
Yeah. There are recommended things, and then there's nothing like nobody's going to check that you've had your hepatitis C vaccine at the border when you come in, but that's one of the things that's on the list of things you should have when you're there.
Oh, okay, that's always good to think about because like you could easily get somewhere and then something might happen and then you don't have your shot. So it is really smart to get those if you're going to be traveling. Because it's kind of like something you can just kind of take care of. So totally. I think we're kind of like coming down to our end. And so what I'm like wondering is what are you planning, like your 4 months in India are coming up. Like what are you planning to do when you're there?
Oh my goodness. So I have some plans and some very open time, but so I'll be in a 10-day, 100-hour training, retreat training intensive experience with 2 beautiful teachers in September. And I'm so excited about that because it's all focused on bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion. And so I'll be doing that. And then the next few weeks I'll be practicing. I'll be taking music lessons. I will be sitting at my favorite cafes, drinking chai and writing in my journal and reading my book and doing a little bit of traveling, making new friends.
Is it pretty easy to like do like day trips or like weekend trips or a few days trips from? Okay.
Yeah, again, it depends on where you want to go. But yeah, it's definitely and what your budget is, because some places you have to fly a couple flights to get to, other places you can get to on the train, and that's less expensive, but it takes longer. So yeah, and then so I'll be doing a little bit of traveling, and then when I come back, the last 2 months that I'll be there, I'll be volunteering at a really, really fabulous place that is just so dear to my heart. It's called Ramana's Garden. And Ramana's Garden is a children's home and school, and they serve kids that have otherwise been forgotten, and they are home and family to just a really magnificent group of young people. And so I'll be volunteering there for 2 months, in whatever capacity they need me most.
And have you already arranged this with them before you get there? Okay.
Yeah, so you can go online. Again, I was connected to them through friends and teachers, and I believe that they're a legit organization, and I've seen the work firsthand that they're doing, and it's really incredible, loving, heart-centered work that's making a huge difference. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing for the last 2 months that I'm there. And I can't wait.
That's so nice of you.
Yeah. No, it's a mutually beneficial experience because it's sort of that heart cracking wide open kind of experience being with these kids and singing and dancing and crying and kind of being with them all the time in school and food, and it's a really beautiful place. So
So what's this little cat? So I like to ask all of my guests, like, what's one place like where they live that we should visit? And so like India is kind of like your other home. So there's this cafe that you've been talking about. I kind of feel like that's where you think people should visit. So like what is this cafe called that you keep on talking about? Or do you
Oh
not
my
want to
gosh,
tell us?
there are 3 cafes. That's really hard to pick just one of them. So
You can
Ramana's
say
has a
all
cafe.
three.
Well, Ramana's Garden has a cafe, and and it's awesome. And they have an organic garden, and so they have salad. They wash in grapeseed oil extract, and so you can eat the salad there. And generally, at other places, I wouldn't eat any raw veg.
Good to know.
Yeah. But I just love Ramana's for so many reasons. But the other, so, yeah, there are 2 others. So another one is called the Royal Cafe, and that was sort of my first cafe love and remains very dear to my heart, the Royal Cafe. And my friends who own that have, over the last year, have become very dear to me. And the owner of that cafe is the one who gave me the Hanuman Chalisa booklet when I was there in March of 2018. And it seems like a lot of Northern Europeans and Israelis find their way to the Royal Cafe. So lots of different kinds of people and people from all over the world. And the family who owns and runs it is just pure love. They're just beautiful, beautiful people. And then Ida's Cafe is, so they had to move, and I don't know where they've ended up. So it's one of my first things to do when I get back there is to figure out where they've gone to, because they make a pretty killer chai. And it's another place. Yeah. Just another place where I found myself spending a lot of time last time I was there. And again, a family owned and run.
And they're still there, but they just moved.
They had to move into a different space. The building space that they were in I can't remember the story, but yeah. And Ida is the daughter, and she's about 4, I think, or 5. Anyway, and she's total spitfire. I just think she's hilarious, and so I spent time coloring with her. And yeah, so really the cafes that I love are because of the people, and also they make really good chai, masala chai.
Doesn't take much, does it? Have you tried the Blue Lotus chai yet?
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's good.
What?
Fine. It's fine. I'm totally a chai snob.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, like you're getting it straight from the source. Like there's a yogi here in Spokane, and I don't know if they're a yogi, I'm just kind of assuming, but they make a local chai, and it's
sweet.
Very, very, very good.
Nice.
For the listeners, I'll try to find it and share that chai with you, because it's like I've had it at 2 places now, and it catches the senses, but it doesn't and then it lingers, but like in a really nice way. Anyways, I think it has to stay cold, so I can't send you any, Jess, but maybe if I go to Seattle, when you're back, I'll make sure I get you some, because I want you to try it.
Cool.
Okay.
Or when I come out next summer.
Yeah, or next summer at the feast.
I'll come out for the feast, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'll remember that. So last question is, what does yoga mean to you?
Oh, yoga means a lot to me. It's what does yoga mean to me? Yoga is it's connection. It's healing. It's love and acceptance. and remembering. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Jess, for
You're welcome.
taking your time to like think that through and feel it. This has been really nice. I've loved like just kind of going through these questions with you and just like how open you've been to it, and I'm really excited for your trip, and I can't wait to like hear about it and what you learned and everything. Yeah. So thank you so much for sitting with us. I know you're really busy since you're going to be leaving soon, but thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. I could talk for 8 more hours about India and time there and so many stories. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you and to share some of this. And
Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you want to check out my journey to sitting down with Jess and get the links to the different cafes and other places that she mentioned during the podcast, go on over to the Yogakane podcast website and you'll find my journey to this episode there. And if you enjoyed this episode, please, let me know and let your friends know. Subscribe to the podcast, leave a review. Those reviews help a lot to rank with the ranking of the podcast. And even bigger than that, with that ranking as it increases, it also increases the awareness of these awesome yoga teachers that we have here in the Pacific Northwest. So if you have time, please leave a review. Very much appreciated. And if you haven't already, please follow the podcast on Yogakane or Instagram. And also, go check out Jess on Instagram. You can find her at The Inner Teacher. And I'm really excited to be following her because in 2 weeks, she's going to be in India. So I'm sure she'll be updating her Instagram a lot with beautiful, awesome India experiences that she'll be having. Stay tuned for episode 18, where I sit down with not one, but 2 yoga accessibility teachers, Mary and Brenda. I'm very excited to bring that episode to you. And here's a little update for you with what some of the previous guests of the podcast are doing. So Emily, the guest from episode 9, Yoga and You Fill in the Blank, well, she is teaching yoga at the Lotus every Friday from 8:15 to 9, and it's a drop-in sort of thing. It's $10, and if you're a student, it's $6. So if you're in Spokane, go check her out at the Lotus. And then the Spokane Yoga Shala has a very exciting event coming up. So the owner of the Shala, Era, is the OG of the podcast. She was my guest for episode 2. And the Spokane Yoga Shala is having a Shala feast on September 15th. So this is a day of a collaborative celebration of community, blessings, and bliss. Local artists are going to be there, yogis, intuitive healers, advisors, all coming together to share their gifts, wisdom, and talent with you. On top of all of that goodness, the Shala will be offering free yoga and meditation classes throughout the day. September 15th, all the details can be found on their Facebook page. That sounds awesome. All right. If there is a yogi or yogis that you would like to hear on the podcast, please let me know. This podcast is all about connecting and expanding and yoking this awesome yoga community that we are so fortunate to live in here in the Pacific Northwest and Northwest. So let me know, and I think that's it. Until next time, Shanti Peace to you and your households. Namaste.